saying? Welcome back. You know what I mean? Turn this up a little bit, man. You know what I mean? Shadowboxing, alright? Hey, instrumental you hear right now is called Shadowboxing. Get this off my face. Shadowboxing, alright? By the Jizza, GZA, the genius. Alright, Wu-Tang Clan. Okay? Hey, if you don't know, look it up. Alright. Very good track. Method Man on it as well. Okay? Alright, welcome back once again. Very groovy beat. My personal favorite. I'm gonna ride to it a little bit. You know what I mean? 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright. Hey, look, welcome back once again. Alright. I.S.C.S.D.R, Independent Sovereign City State Democratic Republic, here reporting to you live. It's Rsenal. Okay, this is R. Giving it to you real. News, updates. Alright, we're looking at science, political, and social news. Okay. That occurs on the outside of this independent sovereign city state of Democratic Republic here. Because what happens on the outside, can directly affect the inside. If that makes sense. Okay. Again, we don't play games here. All right, it's all fake news, but we don't play games here. Giving it to you real. All right, for me and my sovereign nice, because in the I.S.C.S.D.R, in the Independent Sovereign City State Democratic Republic, we overstand the occurrences on the outside. All right, and we move as such. Make sense? Okay. Again, we got 3 topics today: science, social, and political. Okay. I'm gonna start you off with a little bit of science. Okay, start you off with science first. All right. So it says here, SpaceX fires 60 Starlink internet satellites into orbit, with more set to launch in a couple days, Friday. This is what? Yeah. It's tomorrow. Okay, they're gonna launch some more. If you don't know, SpaceX is Elon Musk's project. Another project that he has besides Tesla. Something that is being funded and whatnot. So he has to continue to use the investments he's received to keep pushing out things on his own behalf. All right, on his company's behalf, multiple companies, things like that. All right, and SpaceX is one. Okay, SpaceX is like the equivalent of NASA, except it's it's not NASA. It's Elon Musk. It's his. All right, Starlink is the new internet service that they're providing for people. It's a low range, low land internet service, meaning it's Wi-Fi based. All right, but it's meant to be very strong for those who live in pockets of the world that can't get access to regular internet mobily through radioactive waves and things like that. All right, so if I live in the middle of the mountains, I should have perfect reception from Starlink. Makes sense? Of course, right now, if I live in the middle of the mountains, I don't have perfect reception for Comcast, for Spectrum, whatever your Wi-Fi network is. Does that make sense? You don't necessarily have that unless you have access to a different satellite. All right, the most popular satellites do not. So 60 more SpaceX-owned Starlink internet satellites rocketed through a moonlit winter sky over Cape Canaveral aboard a Falcon 9 launcher. All right, that's one of the ships that they have. Okay. The interesting thing here, it's a little bit of tech and science. All right. 60 of those have been putting up, and they're planning on putting more. Estimates are telling us that they have contracted about 12,000 satellites to be put up. Scientifically, environmentally, why that's an issue, if you know about the Earth already, And if you have seen images of the outer shell of the atmosphere or the inner atmosphere where these satellites reside, there are plenty of satellites up there. A lot, actually, more than I thought of, to the point where if you are looking at the naked eye, it's kind of hard to even, I don't know how you even seeing the Earth while these satellites up there. Does that make sense? There's a lot. Okay, specifically about 6,000, and that's just a rough estimate. About 6,000 of them are out there. About 60% of those are defunct satellites, basically space junk. All right, they don't work anymore. People got to come up and come get them, or they eventually lose orbit, which I doubt, because of the the Earth's gravitational pull. But and 40% of those are operational. Okay, we're looking at about 2,000 or more that'll be added. That was last year, 3,000 or more last year, and there's probably going to be more added up there as well. Um, yeah, it is what it is. I think it's a problem. All right, I think we shouldn't have that many out there, especially. I think we should also have contingencies for if a certain technological failure happens on those, they need to fall back down to earth in a safe manner, and someone needs to pick them up. All right, I'm sure the reports aren't being done on recycling of satellite material, whether they are actually falling back into orbit or whether they just become space junk and pollute the rest of the space. You see what I'm saying? Pollute the galaxy. All right, we don't know, and satellites have been up here for quite some time. All right, satellites have been put out in our atmosphere at least in the 50s or so. If that makes sense. All right, so we have about 2020. What is that? Let's do the math on that. 2020. All right, 2021 actually minus 1950 as far as we know. It's about 71 years, almost on 100 years of satellites being up there. If we're looking at about a range of 2,000 satellites a year, it's a lot of satellites. Okay, 2,000 times 71. I'll just do the math for you because it's again, it's gonna be an issue. 71 or so. All right, we're looking at about 150,000 satellites. All right, that have in and out, recycle in and out of our atmosphere, lower orbit and upper orbit. Okay. SpaceX plans to launch more satellites into polar orbit to enable global coverage of maritime and aviation customers, including the U.S. military. So, yes, they are contracted with the military as well to do these things. Okay. They will orbit at an altitude of 341 miles, 550 kilometers, to provide broadband coverage over nearly all of the populated world. Okay. What may happen, all right, is we may get rid of some of these, some of the older ones. Well, again, how they're gonna get rid of them, but it is what it is. SpaceX may be contracted to do most of the satellites up there. Probably not. What's likely going to happen is a business move. Is all the other satellite companies that are up there, internet services, will upgrade to perform like SpaceX, and they'll launch their own updated satellites up there just to be competitive because it's a competition market. That makes sense. We could research radio waves, things like that. Now, second is a little bit of political. All right, it is political. All right, and it's global politics. And again, international politics I tend to like more because they make more sense. Okay, Ugandan child soldier turned rebel commander is convicted of war crimes. All right. International Criminal Court convicted child soldier turned Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA, Commander Dominique Ongwen of war crimes and crimes against humanity on Thursday. Ongwen was the first LRA commander to face trial for his campaign of terror and violence in the early 2000s. If you don't know, the LRA, one of them was started by Joseph Kony. Okay, Joseph Kony was responsible for kidnapping. That was his thing. He would take and essentially that's every war criminal's thing. All right, you take the younger you start, the more the younger the mind is, the more you can mold them to just do whatever you want. Okay, and that's proven. So Joseph Kony decided he'd go on a pathway to kidnap as many children as he can, and put them to work for his endeavors. Okay, Ongwen, who is now in his 40s, was kidnapped at 10 years old. Okay, and y'all charging him for war crimes. But a three-judge panel found Ongwen guilty of 61 crimes that were committed in northern Uganda from July 2002 through the end of 2005. Honestly, this upsets me because because you're charging a 10-year-old. I don't care how old he is now. You're charging a 10-year-old who was manipulated. All right. The young mind is very easy to manipulate, especially the way they do it. Okay, you can ask the U.S. military that, with them taking in people that are just graduated from high school, barely even graduated from high school, don't even know anything about life, and they mold them into military soldiers. Okay, now of course they do it less extreme than these people here, but they still America's a less extreme environment, if that makes sense. Okay. Ongwen played a key role in Kony's attacks on civilians and refugees, as well as the horrific attacks against women. Okay, some of these crimes are forced marriage, rape, sexual slavery, forced pregnancies, and outrages upon personal dignity of girls and women. The murder, torture, enslavement of civilians, and pillaging of property, and also the continued conscription of children under 15 into rebel groups. Okay, again, he's taking them under teenagers. These are under teenagers, and probably the reason why is because teenagers have a little bit more stone in them, and they'll rebel a lot sooner than a 10-year-old. Okay, this is something that is Uganda in itself, and again Africa in itself has been notorious for having issues. Internal issues of corruption and things like that. But can you blame them for the colonization that happens? Specifically, Uganda was one of the main places for the Imperial British East African Company. Okay, that company there. Okay, IBEACO. What if you don't know? The Dutch, the British. All had endeavors for trade. All right, and Africa was a huge avenue for that. Africa looks like this at the bottom. All right, this is the bottom. East Africa over this way. All right, specifically what happens is they travel down along this coast by ship to get to India. Get to India here, which is a trifecta of trade. If you know the East Indian Trading Company, okay, that's one of the most famous ones. Okay, it was a trifecta of trade for China. Okay, to get silk and tapestry and all these other things. Okay, because China was a top trade in the 16th, 17th century. Okay, this British East African Company was founded in 1888. Okay, and of course they were used to assist with trade. Now the issue is, once this happened, all right, Dutch. British people or whatever landed on this area and became farmers of the area out of leisure. Okay, just being there. It's a very natural resource heavy place. But another issue is the British East Africa Company could not make a profit out there on natural resources. Okay, not necessarily unless they were farmed. Okay. Why that's significant? Okay, I'll tell you why that's significant. If there's no natural resources to be had in the area, what is the next resource that you can have? And that is people. Okay, people. All right, so whether the word was prostitution, whether the word was forced marriage, whether the word is rape, it wasn't registered back then when colonization was happening, but now the child soldier turned warlord is doing it. It's an issue. Okay. It is what it is. Back then, it wasn't necessarily, I don't know the extent of the violence of all this, but again, that they had to make money out there, and farming is not a very huge, lucrative endeavor. Okay. But you having slaves, or you selling people, or forced marrying people, all right, to obtain some sort of a currency behind that. Okay, African people are very beautiful. That makes sense. All right, but these colonizers, let's just say, disguise themselves as what we call Boers. Okay, Boers were farmers. All right, and they would use the people of that area. Say a Dutch person would use the native African people to be spies, things like that, to work for them and do things and navigate the area in order for the Dutch people to go in and farm and start setting up their own little towns and things like that. Okay, it's a huge conflict. You can look up. There's a war that happens around that time between the Boers and natives of such. All right, and likewise, the confusion there, it creates a lot of confusion. Okay, if you have Dutch people here and you have Africans that are helping these Dutch people, it creates a unison there where, hey, y'all two are in the same boat. When essentially, no, they're not in the same boat. These people are being used. These people are the users. Does that make sense? Okay, and it's just creating an internal conflict. That's where all this internal conflicts come from. All right, it's from people that have colonized and that have used the indigenous there to do their bidding, and the indigenous and the people that were using them have all been looped in the same hole because of the amount of nonsense. Now again, Uganda's Uganda's in a lot of again, Africa's in a lot of turmoil because of all this. Okay, but they're only doing what the example was set for them. All right, Uganda itself hasn't become independent and got independence in the I want to say 60s. It's not very far off. All right, independence in the 60s. That's when that trading company left. That's when they gave up, British and everything gave up all those rights to that. All right, officially. Okay, and about the 40s or so was when that's like World War II. After the 40s is when they signed the Atlantic Charter, when they said, hey, the U.S. and the United Kingdom, it's still the United Kingdom, the U.S. and United Kingdom and the British Empire dismantled around the 40s. So they came in, they just picked up all the stuff that they did, especially the British Empire, picked up all the crap that they did with all these other countries and just dipped out and said, hey, you can have your place back after we done set an example of how to do things here, or how we do things here. Okay, some people continue to want money. Some people don't want to be broke anymore. All right, those indigenous that work for them. So what do? They pick up where the British left off. All right, it's basic math. I'm not gonna get too deep into that because it's a little bit of a rabbit hole. All right, last but not least, certainly not least, this is a social document here. All right. Tokyo Olympics chief says he won't resign after sexist remarks about women talking too much. All right, specifically, he says women have a strong sense of rivalry. If one raises her hand to speak, all the others feel they need to speak as well. Everyone ends up saying something. If I say too much, the newspapers are going to write that I said bad things, but I heard somebody say that if we were to increase the number of female board members, we have to regulate speaking time to some extent, or else we'll never be able to finish. And I'm not going to say who said that. Yeah, I mean, this guy is Yoshiro Mori. All right, Yoshiro Mori. He's been thrown under the bus with this. All right. Some people are asking him to resign. All right. They're saying it's unacceptable to say things like that. But honestly, I'm with him, man. Look, I mean, some people talk too much. And honestly, if you're going to add more females, you need to... I'm just playing. I'm not gonna... I think it's hilarious. And I think it's a socially charged document. All right. I think it's a socially charged document where it is true. There needs to be speaking times. All right. Regardless of sex and gender. All right, there needs to be a specific speaking time for everyone. Okay, because in America there's such thing known as a filibuster, where someone can, if you have documents that need to be signed in Congress and Senate and the official court, all right, say they want to put policies regulating taxes or something, if somebody doesn't necessarily agree and is being outvoted, this person can stop the voting process and make it continue another day by filibustering. What filibustering is you're just talking. All right, you may be talking about gun violence. All right, that's actually a true thing. All right, representatives stepped up. He didn't want to necessarily put a vote out to make a decision, so he filibustered that day. He just talked about gun violence for the whole day until the court, until it was time for recession, until everybody had the time to go. Okay, until they closed court down. All right, and then he had to continue the next day. All right, that's a guy that does that. All right. This is obviously sexually charged. I mean, he shouldn't be saying that about women, but hey, you know, women haven't necessarily had the voice to speak, so they may want to chat a lot. It's understood. All right. He went home and saying that his wife scolded him, his granddaughter and his daughter scolded him as well, saying this is not good. You shouldn't have done that. But he apologized, but he's not resigning. Hey, I'm with him. Okay. Just gonna do a little recap here. Okay, first, Starlink. There's no policies in space. I don't know what to tell you. There's really no policies in space. It's space. All right, so it's not like they're saying, hey, you know, you have a certain amount. This country has a certain amount of things. The only policy they do have is who has a certain sector of low orbit areas to put things up. All right, you can't put up spyware. You can't put spy tech and satellites and stuff like that to spy on another country. That's an agreement that was signed. You can't weaponize satellites either. Yet satellites are radioactive. They're high frequency. So hey, you know, if you overpopulate the area with satellites, I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe you're frying people's brains. Maybe you're causing more cancer. We don't know. But one of the things I do want to mention is when you are putting, for us, not necessarily me because I overstand, but for the people on the outside listening, fellow sovereignites, it is important that maybe you should pick one company, or maybe we should try to lobby for one company being up there, because there's a lot of trash up there, or lobbying for some kind of environmental cause to say, hey, you need to, if you're not the primary satellite being used, you need to take that down. Or you need to take it out of orbit. We're looking at a place that we're looking at an Earth that may be shadowed and covered with satellites. Satellites would be the things protecting us from UV rays, or maybe overexposing us to UV radiation. Okay. Second, Uganda's situation, child criminal becoming warlord. Now they want to try him and convict him of war crimes. Just be aware and do your history. All right, do your history. There are examples that were set. All right, one of the main things I want to say is if nature can't be sold, people will be sold. That's plain and simple. If I go to your house, all right, and I'm expecting, or if I go to a country and I'm expecting to find gold there, and I don't find gold, but I find a lot of people there, which Africa has a high birth rate, a lot of people. There's money to be made somehow, if that makes sense. Last and not least, make policies for everyone. All right, as far as the Tokyo Olympics man goes. All right, can't say that women talk too much and it's a running joke, but it's essentially not funny because they haven't been able to speak a lot in life anyway. All right, and that's historical. That's across the board. That's a global thing. A lot of women haven't had a voice. So when they want a voice, they're gonna overtalk. It's the same thing as old people when they get left alone. No one wants to talk to them. So by the time they do get a phone, all they want to do is chat. All right, because no one wants to talk to them. But put a time limit on everyone. hey, you want something to say, and this is for the U.S. as well, you want something to say, you got 10 minutes to say what you have to say. If it's not important, if you don't say anything with substance that matters to what we're talking about today, I don't know, maybe you don't get to speak next turn. Maybe you have to raise your hand. Whatever it is. Make sense? All right, we're going to end with something I always like to do, a little bit of relaxation. All right. Inhale, exhale. And relax. All right, instrumental is Land of Honey by Flying Lotus. Flying Lotus. Okay? Land of Honey. All right. Peace. Love. And use your head for more than a hat rack.